Hey everybody, it's that time again where this room goes from a quiet room to a magic room. Something happens in this room every time I walk into it. It's a Zoom room, it's nothing special. But what's special is the people that come in here make the room what it is. Um, this show, by the way, is being sponsored, and I'm so happy that it's being sponsored by the Mosaic. The Mosaic is a book. It's a story about a boy who loses his parents 2 years apart on the same day. And when he asks the adults where his parents are, they tell him they're in a place called heaven. And so when he sets out in search of that place called heaven, the people that he meets along the way are not the clergy and the shamans and the medicine men and women and the Aborigines elders, but common ordinary people. And there's something in the shift that happens when he listens to their stories that allows him to see them in a totally different way than he ever saw them before. And it's that shift of perception. That's that shift that happens when we sit and listen to somebody that has brought the Mosaic on to this show as a sponsor for this show. And so I thank them for sponsoring it. I thank them for being behind us. And if you get a chance and you feel to afterwards, we would love you to purchase the book and see what they're all about. All that aside, today I have somebody that I have no idea who she is. She was recommended to me by another stranger that I had on the show, a man by the name of Aseem. When I just spoke to her in the green room for a few minutes now, I asked her where she's from. She's calling from Abu Dhabi. So one of the things that I love is that this little Zoom room is now spreading out around the world. We've spoken to people from India, from Australia, from Abu Dhabi, from Israel, from Europe. And slowly this is infiltrating in. And it's with real joy and real pleasure that I want to introduce Swey Jitti to this room. Swey, how are you doing?
I'm doing brilliant. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for holding the space for yet another stranger and yet another roller coaster of a conversation. I am so honored to be here. Thank you so much, Danny.
I love when two people walk into a room and both feel honored to be in the other's presence. So that's exactly how I feel with you, that you would come into this room to have a conversation with a complete imperfect stranger like myself. Thank you for doing that. So I don't know how things are in Abu Dhabi, but in the United States, we've gone through quite an upheaval
Yeah.
between the Me Too movement, between the pandemic that is raging around the world,
hmm
between racial relations where people of black and brown skin are standing
hmm
up to say we matter, and it's jolted the view of the way we used to be, and it's asking us to perceive the world in a different way.
hmm
How are you doing, really? Like, how are you really through all this?
To be very honest, so first thing is that I live in Dubai. Abu Dhabi is another city.
Okay.
It's the main city. It's a lot more quiet. Dubai is a lot more buzzing. It's more where the international aspect of the country truly ties in. Um, but I've been doing really good. The first week of the pandemic, when it hit, I was really troubled. I was tad bit scared, even though I've been through like a lot in life. This was the first time going through a pandemic, and even though I've heard so much, being a history buff, I was just not prepared. Nothing prepared me for the first week, and the wave of emotions that hit me the first week and like the first 2 3 weeks. By the third week, things start to look up. I've always been a believer that when you're in a situation that looks absolutely horrible, one door closes, but there is always another that opens up. And for me, yes, the pandemic slightly blurred my vision and sense of, control over my emotions for the first 2 weeks. But by the end of the third week, I felt so much more calmer, and I could just clearly see the opportunities that were around me amidst the chaos. And I say this very often, but people around me always tell me that you always see the beauty in the chaos. And I really do, because I feel like if I can't find the beauty in the chaos, what else do I have to look into it? What else
Yeah,
do I have to look forward to it? So yeah, on that note, I've been brilliant ever since.
I love that. And for those of you who are listening, what a beautiful concept to see the beauty in the chaos. If we can dive down into what you just said a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
it reminds me of when I used to sit in a Vedantic practice where I would sit and meditate in a room. And the first time that I went into the room, I sat there for 10 days. And they would, I would just walk in and they would close the room and I was by myself the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
For the first 6 hours, it was the most blissful thing that I've ever experienced. And then around the seventh hour, I started to say, "Hey, is anybody going to check in on me? Is I'm getting hungry? Is anybody going to bring food? Like, what's going on?"
Right.
Right? And I started to get really upset.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started knocking on the door, and somebody came and said, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I just don't understand what's going on here." And
Mm-hmm.
they took me to see the head monk of the practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat with him and I said, "What the heck is going on here?" He said, "Denny, tell me how your time has been here." I
Mm-hmm.
said, "Well, the first 6 hours were absolutely beautiful. And then around 7 hours, I thought, what the heck is going on?" And he
Mm-hmm.
said, "Danny, what changed between hour 6 and hour 7?
Mm-hmm.
Did the temperature change? Did anything in the room change? Did the lighting change? Did anything outside of you change?" And I said, "No, not a
Mm-hmm.
thing, no." And he said, "So I want you to go back into the room and think about what changed between hour 6 and 7." It's a long way of lobbing over to you the question of what
Mm-hmm.
changed between week 2 or 3 and the next weeks that followed for you.
So, first of all, that gave me slight chills because I had a similar experience when traveling was, a common luxury.
Yeah.
I was pretty, I think, 18, 19 when I first went to Nepal. And I really, because I was going through so much trauma and I wanted to heal. And I decided I wanted to get my first tattoo in Nepal that resonated with my journey. And I went to one of the temples, and one of the monks over there really, I had the similar experience. They put me in a room, and I just sat there, and I felt so much chaos in myself, so much chaos. And I knew that I needed to sit with my chaos because I was running away from it. I
Yeah.
wasn't understanding that sometimes chaos has to be, chaos has to be for us to see what comes out of the fog, what is beyond our vision. So something similar happened between the transition of week 2 and week 3. Week 2, I was, I had all these investments made into my business, which I shared with my husband at that time. And I just kept thinking, oh my God, like we were doing so well, and now we're going to hit a fall. And I kept thinking over and over again. And I'm the kind of person that I overthink, but my overthinking also has like a positive aspect that the more I think, the more I have answers to every one of my questions. So I kept thinking and thinking. And by the time it was week 3, I felt this acceptance, this peace. I felt like I can't do anything about it. It's an external thing. If it was something internal within me, I could handle it. But what is happening around the world is so external. And even if it affects my business, the way I feel right now, it's so temporary. And I really had to ask myself the questions. And since I'm a therapist, I kind of like look into my own practices that I give my clients for myself. So I asked myself, what is the worst outcome, what is the best outcome, and what is the likely outcome.
Mm-hmm.
I asked myself these questions, and then I asked myself the worst outcome. If I really consider and immerse myself thinking that the worst outcome has already happened, will it matter to me 1 week down the line? Will it matter to me a month down the line? Will it matter to me a year down the line? If my answer was mostly no, then I know I'm going to come out of this. And this is not something that really I should allow myself to like hold myself back. So I think that was a transition, really going inside myself talking to myself and giving a good lecture to myself and really listening to myself at the same time, that you need to stop it, like zone out all the negativity. The inner narrative needs to change for me to be able to really look at the opportunities that this chaos has brought me. So yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So, excuse me again. We jumped in really quickly to the middle of the conversation. And what I really want to do is just invite listeners to ponder with us together. Look what happens when you ask a simple question like, how are you? And just give people the space to answer rather than just accept fine, great, good. You know, when you actually are genuinely interested, look at the discussion that comes as a result of it. But I want to rewind a little bit, not rewind the conversation, but we don't know even who you are or what you do. Can you take a minute and just tell us who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So, as you know, I'm Swey Jitti. Swey is my
First
birth
of all,
name.
Fabulous name.
Thank you. So, Swey is my birth name. My full name in an American version would be like a Mary Ann sort of a thing. So, my full name is Swey Jitti. It's quite a mouthful. So, I go with my birth name. The meaning of my name is independence and freedom.
Wow.
And I've tried to live up to my name as much as I can till date. I was very scared of the meaning that it held, and it scared me because I didn't really understand it when I was younger, and it came from a very traumatic place because the people who gave me the name were my, not the right people in my life. So after going through kind of all of that, how I found my freedom and my independence and sort of owning my name was finding my way through healing from my trauma, which I will touch base later on. But today, I'm doing things that I never thought I would do. I have 4 successful businesses.
Wow.
Thank you. I am a podcast host, which talks about mental health because that's something I'm really passionate about. It's called Polite but Savage. I'm a therapist.
Say that again. It's called what?
Polite but Savage.
Polite but Savage. So for those of you listening, check out Polite but Savage podcast by Swey.
Thank you for the shout out, Danny.
Absolutely.
I'm also, other than that, I am the co-founder of Kaleidoscopic Vision, which is a digital media production company that I own with my husband. That's something I co-founded with him. The other 2 things that I do, I run a private practice as a therapist, as well as a communications and mindset coach. So yeah, I'm working on my 2nd-ish book, and I'm hoping that it will be a success. The first one never saw the daylights, so I'm hoping that this will. Yeah, that's basically it.
So do the days where you're from have more than 24 hours in it? Because that sounds like a lot for a person to be doing.
This is not the first time I've been asked this. No, not more than 24 hours, definitely. But I've really mastered time management. I don't know how, but I did it. That I do all of the things that I do because they all truly come from passion.
Yes, beautiful. So you said something that sort of got buried in all the things that you said, but I just, when you said it, my body quirked a little bit. That I was given my name by people I shouldn't have really been with. Can you dive into that a little bit?
So I'm a trauma survivor of domestic violence. I'm
so sorry.
Mentally and physically abused by my parents. They were my abusers. It went on for years and years, but I first got truly aware of how wrong or uncomfortable it made me as a human being, as an individual, at the age of 10. And at the age of 14, 15, I think it was 15, my father tried to kill me, which was kind of my last straw. I left home, never looked back. And it always makes my heart heavy to kind of think, because I'm the kind of person that really wants to find positive. I really look for the good, even in the bad.
Yeah.
So I tried over the years and I've come to terms with it. I know that they were going through their own trauma that wasn't dealt with. And I'm just glad that I broke the cycle.
Yeah. Huge, huge. So, again, I just want to invite the listeners into this conversation. Um, take a look at what Sway is now and take a look at the place she's just invited you to see from where she came from. There are so many people that have come from that place where she came from and not amounted to much, have allowed that to strangle them and take the life out of them. Um, I want you to see that a person who sees the positive, who can't see the positive even in that situation, has created a positive out of a life that most people would not find a positive in. And I want you to just take note of that for your own life. What areas of your own life are you still held hostage to? What areas of abuse or trauma have you gone through that you're still traumatizing yourself by
Mm-hmm.
not allowing yourself to just drop it and let it go and keep moving on? So um, I want to thank you for being so intimate and real and raw and just not knowing us. We're strangers. And to be able to share that with us in this room so quickly and so honestly. And I mean, I felt every part of it as you said it. So I understand that. And
Thank you.
absolutely, thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you for
being.
holding the space for me. It's always, I don't know, it's little Sway, you know, a little Sway. She still wants acknowledgement for her pain, and sometimes that's really difficult, even at this age, to kind of align with everything and every part of me. So every time someone says that I feel you, I feel for you, it isn't really for me. It's for my inner child, and so I thank you for giving her that space.
Absolutely. And again, I remember I said to you in the green room, if I ask you something that you don't want to answer, feel free not to answer it. But what would you say to little Sway right now if you could talk to her right this second?
I try and talk to her every day. And every day I do find myself at a loss of words because if it weren't for her resilience at the age of, uh, she was young, she was so young, she didn't know anything about the world. And at the age of 15, to kind of take that decision that I'm going to really just stop. If she didn't take that decision, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be this way today. And I just want to, if today, right now, I just want to tune in with her and let her know that you were so brave. And I know that sometimes it gets tiring to hear that you were so brave, but what you did was right. And today you're living a life that's so much more fulfilled, so much more fulfilled. And you're doing everything that you didn't even dream of. So thank you. And your fears and, you know, the moments that you were scared for your life, for yourself, for your light, you'd never lose any of that. You never lost any of that when you came out of it. So that's it.
Will you allow me to try something with you?
Sure.
Okay. And if it gets uncomfortable at any point in time, just tell me stop. Okay.
No problem. Yes.
Can you close your eyes for a minute? And can you visualize little Sway? Can you see
Mm-hmm.
her at whatever age you see her at?
Mm-hmm.
And can you invite her to take a look at who she's become? Can you invite her to see you now? And can you show her what a beautiful, powerful, radiant woman she is? And when she sees that, will you let me know that she sees that?
She sees it.
Okay. Will you tell her now that this beautiful, radiant, powerful woman sees her and understands her and will take care of her from here on out. And that she will never allow anybody to beat her or touch her or do anything or abuse her or hurt her again. That person that she's been looking for to protect her is here. And that she doesn't have to worry anymore because you'll protect her. Can she hear what you're saying?
Yes.
What does she want to say back to you?
She says, thank you for seeing me, seeing my bruises, seeing my pain. And thank you for not letting my light out.
And what's little Swey want to tell you that that you haven't ever seen before?
She says that I'm still scared. I'm still scared of things that remind me or connect me to the parts of that period of my life, and that I have nothing to fear about because I made the empowered choice to be what I am today, who I am today, and I have nothing to fear.
I hear her saying something a little bit more than that. Can I share it with you? I hear her saying, and if this doesn't make sense, please just throw it right into the trash, okay? But what I hear her saying is there's no need for you to be scared, Big Swey. We made it. We got through this. And you can count on my resilience anytime you get scared, because I made it through to the other side. So as you protect me, I will make sure that you're able to move and dance and find new ways to get through situations that you can't think you could ever get through. And that we were always meant to come together. And it's this moment right now that I celebrate more than anything in the world. Because more than anything, I need your protection, and more than anything, you need my courage. Does that resonate at all?
Yes.
Can you thank her for showing up? And when you're ready, come back to now.
Okay, I've got a little tears.
Tell me what's happening. First of all, thank you for having the courage to go through that. This is not what's ever happened in this room before, but it just felt so right in this moment to have it happen now.
I laugh because I just find things like that so beautiful, even when they're happening inside me. But thank you for doing that, Danny. I don't think I've ever been a stranger has ever really held that space, not just for present Sway, but for little Sway. And that meant so much for her and for me.
Yeah.
And all I could see were rainbows. And that made me feel so good.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, thank you for being open enough to allow it to happen. It's not something I normally do in this room. But
You're pretty good at it.
Thank you. Thank you. What's important to you?
To be happy,
How do you do that? What makes you happy?
There are so many things. There are so many things. I've really come a long way to figure out what makes me happy. And now that I have like a full, you know, extensive list that doesn't end. But if I said what makes me happy at the moment in the phase that I am in life, um, the love that I am able to give, I wasn't sure I would be able to. I am in a very healthy and loving relationship with my husband. I didn't know I was capable of that
Beautiful.
with everything that I went through. And it makes me genuinely look forward to being, you know, a mother, a mother that I never had because I had to reparent myself a lot.
Yeah.
And that makes me happy. Looking forward to that makes me happy. To hold this love that I never thought I could makes me happy.
Huge. Beautiful, beautiful place. What a beautiful answer. If money weren't important in your life, and I'm not saying that it is that important, but if money weren't important at all,
Mhm.
what would you be doing with your life?
I would be living in the mountains.
In the mountains.
No joke. I wake up every day because I have this thing. It's passed down in my family, and some people call it, uh, woo woo. But so basically, I have this thing that whenever I get a feeling in my gut, and if I let it come out of my mouth, it comes true, whether
Oh,
it's bad or good. My mother had something similar. She would dream something and it would come true, whether it's bad or good. And it just went on in our family with the women, especially in different ways. So I just really want to kind of go in the mountains, live a nomadic life, be one with the nature. I want, like, because in Dubai, I'm always surrounded by sand.
yeah.
I just want to be one with Mother Gaia for a little
Yeah.
bit. So if
Beautiful.
money wasn't important, I'd be doing that.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Let's change it up a little bit. And by the way, I suck at lightning rounds, but we'll try it and see how this
It's
how it
okay.
goes. Um, I call it a lightning round, but it's really just another vehicle to allow us to have some conversation. Okay. The
Awesome.
first
Let's
the
go.
first few are pretty easy to stay on, but
Hmm.
as we get a little further, it grows. Um, are you a dog person or a cat person?
Dog.
Dog.
Mhm.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Tea. Wow. Okay. Junk food or organic?
Uh, yeah, I can't choose. I can't choose. They both taste good. Okay. But I try to find a good balance in between. So to have a best of both worlds.
Okay, love it. Uh, would you say you are a conservative person or a more liberal person?
The latter,
Liberal. Okay.
definitely.
Um, and would you say you are someone who is in the box or lives out of the box?
That's a good one. I would say I'm living in a big box
Ah,
full of small boxes, and I kind of don't fit into any of those small boxes, but I still belong to the big box.
wow. Tell me more about that. I've never heard
Um,
anybody describe it that way. I love that. I love that image.
so basically, the big box to me is the universe, and the small boxes are the issues and problems and the labels that as humans we've kind of evolved into creating. And I don't think I have ever truly, and I've asked myself this quite often, ever truly fit into any of those labels. I'm not a perfect wife. Um I'm not going to be a perfect mom. I'm not the perfect woman. I'm not a perfect businesswoman. I'm not a perfect I wasn't even the perfect daughter. I'm not the perfect, I don't even fit into my professions perfectly because I just have that kick to whatever I do. So that's why I don't think I belong to any of those boxes. So it's always been hard for me to find like a true belonging in this, um, I wouldn't say planet, but on the land.
Yeah.
But I do find myself belonging to the universe as a whole because we're just such a small percentage of the big box. And I think there's so much more out there. And that so much more is my calling. It calls me out, it pulls me towards it. And so, yeah,
I love that answer. I want to ask you a little bit more on it.
sure.
Do you believe anybody is the perfect wife, mother, business person, owner, um,
There is
woman, man?
there is this thing that has kind of evolved into humans, and it's integrated so much that every one of us individually think of perfection differently.
Hmm.
So everyone has made their own little boxes in their heads. So it's not just that we have that one big box of which is the universe and then the labels that the society puts us in, but then we also have these tiny boxes in our heads which we're living in. So there are people who do, think that they are perfect mothers on their level of perfection. They think that they're perfect business men or women on their level of perfection.
Gotcha.
So, and I'm no one to say
That
that
they're right or
perfection
wrong.
doesn't that it doesn't exist, because for them, if that's the level that they believe in, then it works for them, right? So yeah.
Why do you think it's important for people to believe that they are the perfect mom or the perfect business person?
That's a very simple answer. We uh we have this tendency to want to belong, and when we can't find something on the materialistic plane, which is earth, somewhere we feel like we can belong, we create these dimensional planes in our heads, in our internal space, where we feel like we can belong, and we create levels of perfection. So we tell ourselves like, at this age, for what I'm doing, I'm the perfect mom because I can't be better than I am at this point, which is not true nor false,
Right.
because because it is the way it is. When we're in a situation, we do the best we can. When we look back at it, we can say, I wish we could do that. But unfortunately, the version of us at that time did the best we could.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
It sort of fits into you're sort of empathic because we're answering the next questions often in the questions we're in. Um, but I wanted to ask you this: do you feel like you fit into the world, or do you feel like you've always been a little different?
Um, Externally, I think I tick a lot of boxes for a lot of people, so it's easy for them to put me in a box. But internally, no, I don't think so.
So where would that leave you in that conversation? Do you feel like you fit into the world, or you're a little different?
That's the thing. I do feel like I do, and at the same time, I don't. I'm very neutral because I have a very good understanding of how I look like externally and how I really am internally.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
So I think you sort of answered what I'm really asking, but I just want to ask it again on the off chance that there's something else there that I haven't picked up.
It's okay.
Um, in asking these questions, part of what I'm doing is gathering data for just the experiment of my own making of
Mm-hmm.
what do people who come into this room actually think,
Mm-hmm.
and gathering data from people that I don't know, because it's easy to gather data from people you do know.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the interesting places of gathering data that I've gotten was that huge majority of people don't feel like they fit into the world. They
Mm-hmm.
they can play the game of the world, but when they're separated out from it, they say, "I really don't fit in that much, and I would never really fit in, and I never really feel that I'm a part of this world, even though I've learned how to play the game."
Hmm.
That would certainly be a true statement of mine, but I always thought I was the exception rather than the rule. I thought most people would answer that they fit into the world pretty much.
Hmm. Hmm.
That has not been the case.
Yeah.
So, what it's brought to me is a question that I just inquire. It doesn't mean you have to have the answer to it, but I'm interested.
Sure.
Why do you think people who don't feel they fit into the world try so hard to fit people into the world? In other words, why do you think we make all these little boxes
Hmm.
to try and, like, we're a Democrat or Republican in America, or
Hmm.
we're, a liberal or a conservative, or we're, for the government or against the government, or we're,
Hmm.
pro this or anti this, or why do
Hmm.
you think we make so many boxes when we ourselves don't feel like we fit into those boxes?
Because as humans, we want to be liked.
We want to be liked.
We want to be liked. And when we want to be liked, we need to dress the way we want to be liked. Because, the saying goes, we attract what we are. And sometimes we have to fake it till we make it, And
So
so,
pause for a minute, because there's something that is incongruent for me that I hear, not from
okay,
you, but from that statement, right?
okay.
If we attract what we are and we fake it till we make it,
Hmm.
aren't we attracting the faking it that we are not? Like, why do we try so hard to be something we're not if we want to attract what we are?
See,
Does that make
the
sense to
way
you?
it does. And this is something that I actually had a very recent conversation about. Um, why we do the whole fake it till we make it is kind of another way for people to kind of understand that it's okay to not be perfect. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay not to fit in somewhere, but you can learn to, which has its own pros and cons. So fake it till you make it is kind of like you're allowing yourself to expand and learn along the way. So
Okay.
this is why we keep on sort of, putting ourselves in boxes and trying to wear it, wear the look, be the look, think the look. And eventually by the end of it, we become, the people who jack of all trades. That's why that's when we really start feeling because we don't fit in anywhere because we've learned so much.
Yeah. So, just as an interesting note, and you can either respond to it or we can move on.
Mm-hmm.
Part of my dream, and because of the data that I've collected from here, is to try and create a space
Mm-hmm.
that allows people to fit in by not fitting in. One woman answered the question, "Oh, yeah, I fit into the world because the whole world is people that don't fit in." So I
Mm-hmm.
fit into that world, and I love that answer that she gave me, and
Mm-hmm.
it sort of felt resonant with me as a human being, the way I resonate with the world too.
Right.
And what would happen if we had a space where people could be just who they were and didn't
Mm-hmm.
have to fake anything until they made it to be somebody that they think they want to be? But we
Mm-hmm.
could hold the space for people to be exactly who they were, and they could fit into a world of people that just don't fit into the world.
So theoretically, that sounds amazing. But as humans, I truly, truly believe because we've evolved so much, we're kind of at this point of no return because we kind of can't go back to not being able to think that we need to fit in or we don't need to fit in. Not think of the extremes. We can't go back to that. What we can do is accept the fact that we are already in a space where, like you said, because we don't fit in, we fit in.
Yes.
So I don't think if there was even like a space like that, people would still have so much things that they've learned. And it's really hard to unlearn all of that and really allow people to, like, for example, I would be part of that space and I would constantly think like, yeah, I don't want anyone to fit in. But the minute someone says something about that is slightly, the right word would be, you know, controversial to that space, I would jump in and I'd be like, no, but you're here for something else. because that's how protective I am of the
Wow.
space and of the people. But when I get that protective, I'm not really serving the people.
Right. Right.
Am I making sense?
Completely. I had someone who came into the room. So many of the people that come into this room, as much
Mm-hmm.
as I don't know them, still think are in the thought processes that I'm in. We share a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the same thoughts. We believe a lot of the same ways, and so I
Mm-hmm.
consciously started to put out messages saying I'm looking for people that aren't like me. And I
Mm-hmm.
had a born again Christian come into the room,
Mm-hmm.
and I watched what happened to myself. It was the only time in this room that I came in with an agenda, because
Mm-hmm.
somehow the way she presented herself made me agenda and say, but hold on, how about this? And I was a part of an Eastern religious group that saw this, and 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 we had a brilliant conversation, but it wasn't the conversation of this room.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
The room of the conversation of this room is to just let people say what they say and feel what they feel and feel loved and accepted for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it really showed me something really big about myself, that I don't know that I'm big enough yet to hold that space. But my
Exactly.
belief system is, and what I've watched happen here on other occasions, is in this room where I hold the space for people to let go of what they're not, they actually become who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the space that I want to create in this world. A
Mm-hmm.
space that's bigger than this room, that has many rooms like this room, because you
Yeah.
have the option of having a room like this, and other people can have a room like this, where we hold the space for people to let go of everything they are not, so
Yeah.
that they can just be who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's my philosophy. We don't go
No,
into the detail.
it's such a wonderful philosophy, and I really hope that someday it comes true.
Okay.
But before that, I think there's so much unlearning we have to
Yes.
do.
Yeah.
So much unlearning, even for myself. I'm like, and I think it's so humble of you to actually recognize that there is work to be done with yourself to
Totally.
actually make it possible. So
Totally.
yeah.
Both of these are super important, but I'd love to know what's more important for you right now, amongst the two of them, if you can.
Okay.
Is it more important for you to be able to stand up and speak what you believe and be heard? Or is it more important for you to hold the space for other people to speak what they believe and to listen?
I have to choose one or the other.
In a perfect world, yeah.
um,
And I'll take note that you don't want to, that you would like to have both. But like, which of them for you right now is more important?
um, it's a tough choice because change begins with me. Change begins, empathy begins with being empathetic towards myself and everything that I've been through. So it's really difficult to choose one or the other. But if I had to just choose one of the either in the perfect world, I would say holding a space for someone else, holding a space for other people.
So this isn't something you have to choose for the rest of your life. This is just in this phase of your life, what's most important for you. Would you still have the same answer?
Yeah.
I love it, because the data that I'm collecting here on this question is exactly the opposite of what I thought I was doing in this room. Because in this room, I created this room with the thought that I wanted to give people a chance to say what was on their mind and be
Mm-hmm.
heard, because I didn't think people felt heard. What I'm
Mm-hmm.
finding overwhelmingly when I ask the question, it may be my inadequacy in asking the question correctly, is a
Mm-hmm.
huge majority of the people want to hold the space for other people to be heard, because perhaps they don't feel listened to and they want to have other
Mm-hmm.
people feel listened to. So it's incredibly interesting what's coming through as a result of the data
Mm-hmm.
collection of just questions. Um,
Wow.
it's fun. Would you say you operate from your head or your heart?
My heart.
And would you call yourself a leader or a follower?
A leader.
Let me follow up if I can.
Okay.
And I already see some of that leadership in the way we're having this conversation, by the way. So I appreciate
Oh,
that. Okay.
Thank you.
Because you have the courage to stand up for what it is you believe, even if somebody else is saying something else. So I love that. Um, you're not here in America, so it may not be as relevant and an example for you, but in the American world we're living in right now,
Hmm.
we elect our leaders
Right.
and we expect them to lead.
Hmm.
Um, but what seems to happen, and maybe it's always happened, maybe it's just becoming more prevalent for me in the vision that I see,
Hmm.
is once our leaders enter the silo of their belief system and the party that they lead,
Hmm.
very few of them have the courage to stand up within that silo and say, I love what we're doing here, but I don't like at all what we're doing here. Like this
Right.
just doesn't feel right. And it doesn't
Hmm.
matter which party you're a part of. You could be in part of the Republican Party. Trump says I could murder somebody on Fifth Avenue and people would follow me, right? Which is, crazy. Or you could be in the Democratic Party, which every time the guy walks around the corner, they have a bat and slugs him in the head and knocks him over. There's like nothing that he's done right that they can acknowledge. And
Yeah.
when someone's told you haven't done anything right, they stand up and defend themselves. Well, look, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this, and no, you haven't, no, you haven't,
Hmm.
no, you haven't. And and nobody within either party has the courage to say, we as a party are not seeing this clearly.
Yeah.
So our leaders that we elect to be our leaders really have become followers. In a conversation that I had in this room with another stranger, what I realized is I don't have even the ability within my own citizens of my own mind to go against some of the momentum that I have in my life. In
Hmm.
general, I look at myself and I think I'm so happy and proud of the man that I've become. I really
Hmm.
like this guy. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
But I see some things that he's doing, eating patterns or exercise patterns or belief systems or my inability to let people in close who are close to me. And
Yeah.
I don't have the ability to stand up to the momentum of my past belief systems
Hmm.
to correct those sometimes. And
Right.
so it's no wonder that I would elect leaders that have that same inability to stand up to the momentum of their own belief systems. Make sense?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
So to me, we're a land full of leaders who are actually followers because we don't have the courage to stand up.
Hmm.
Do you have the courage to stand up to your own belief systems?
I have so far. So I just hope that I continue to do so.
Yeah,
I know it's really difficult to challenge my own belief systems. I've been there. I continue to be there every day. But that's the thing. Challenging myself is an opportunity for me.
yeah,
And as long as I kind of look at it that it's for my improvement, for my betterment, I will keep doing so.
beautiful. Do you think people are more similar than they are different or more different than they are similar?
Hmm, I think people are more similar than they're different. The thing is, I genuinely believe that when people come into this world, they're a blank canvas, and along the way, they get all these qualities, attributes, talents, and yada yada yada. But what they forget is that just like the universe, there's just so much about it that we don't know. There are undiscovered parts of us that we're not tapping into, and maybe those undiscovered parts of us that we haven't tapped into, someone else has tapped into.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that we don't have it or we aren't like that. It's just that we haven't tapped into it. So I may be good at something you may not have even looked into yourself, if that is something you have. But it does exist. You just haven't looked into it.
Yeah, beautiful. So if we're more similar than we are different, why do you think we focus on the differences so much?
Because we don't see it in ourselves.
We don't
There
see
is
what? What
this,
is the it that we don't see?
so, there is envy, right? In us. There are all these deadly sins. And I love them because they have these flip side of the coins, which are absolutely beautiful. There are things in us, when we don't have it, we yearn for it. The more we yearn for it, the more we go looking for it. And the more we go looking for it, we end up seeing it in someone else. And that's where we think, oh, we wish we had it. And it starts off with a harmless thought. We wish we had it. I wish I had that. But then it turns obsessive over the over the time, because the more you think about these things, the more you start realizing that, oh, they have it and I don't. You start focusing on the difference. You don't want to see if you have it in yourself. So it kind of goes back to what I said.
Yeah.
Because we don't focus, we don't allow, and this is the word I use, allow, because everything about ourselves is in our hands. We have the keys, we have the locks. We put the locks, we turn the keys. You've thrown that key away somewhere, and because you see the door has opened there, you're going to keep getting envious of that door, of those opportunities, of that person, because you're thinking so much about it. But you're not putting yourself as that person who can allow for that to happen for yourself, which is why we tend to focus more on on our differences than our similarities.
So that sounds like a very lonely world,
Yeah.
because another clear, like as you're speaking, I would think, well, gosh, if somebody has something that I don't have, why wouldn't I go up to them and ask them if they can help me to attain what it is that they have?
Right.
Right? Like, why do you think we wouldn't do that?
So I can only speak from my experience. I think there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fixed rules that we put for ourselves as we go through life. When I was, in university, I had left home, and I kind of made a rule for myself. I'm not going to allow anyone to get close to me.
Mm.
I put that rule for myself. But when I would see other people get close, have intimate relationships, intimate friendships, I would I would think about it so much, it would hurt me, and I wouldn't have the courage to go and tell someone that I don't know how to do this.
Wow.
I don't know how to do this because I never saw things like this before. It's baffling me so much to the point that I want it. I just don't know how to reach for it.
Wow.
I never had those words at that time. And I think every time we have such moments where we look into the differences instead of the similarities, it's that fear that comes in because we lack that courage at that time in our life. And trust me, every time we go into the next phase of our life, that problem is solved, but something new has come up. There's a new fear. So that's the reason why.
Love it. Do you think with all that's going on in the world speaks to us? Do you think our jobs speak to us? Do you think our bodies speak to us? I know people speak to us and we can listen to them. But do you think the environment speaks to us? The world itself is speaking to us? Our bodies, our businesses, do you think all of those things have voices?
All the time, all the time. If you're the kind of person who really believes in signs, and not just, the kind of signs like, oh, dear Lord or dear universe, show me a sign, but signs that what the, it's like looking into the future. And you can only look into the future when you have enough time to really reflect with yourself. We don't do that enough. So we don't see the signs around us. But Mother Nature is always speaking to us. Oh God, how we have ignored her. Our work. I've seen it so often. Sometimes I don't even want it, and it's there for me. It's
Yeah.
showing me constant signs that this needs to happen. This needs to happen. So I do generally, from the bottom of my heart, I feel like the world, all the little elements of it, is speaking to us.
Yeah.
Everything that makes up the world is speaking to us.
If you would condense its message into one statement or two,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think it wants to say to us?
No, I don't think it has just one thing to say, to be honest. That's a difficult one. I
Well, you know,
hear
and
way too many.
all these sounds are happening, but then if you go underneath them, there's normally an anchor that holds
Hmm.
all of those balloons where they are. And so I'm asking, can you go beneath the things that it's actually saying to the thing,
Hmm.
to the core of what it really wants to say?
I think I think it wants to say that we really need to embrace our individual freedom to find freedom as a whole,
Hmm.
freedom as a unit.
Beautiful.
That's what I think it's trying to say.
Do you think it's trying to say that same thing to you personally?
Um, Sometimes, yes.
Or better yet, what do you think it's trying to say to you personally?
Oh, to me, well, Mother Gaia is telling me to come to the mountains.
Okay, now
She's telling, I think the world is telling me personally, on a personal note, to kind of take time for myself to focus on the things other than money, other than the happinesses that money brings, to focus on those things
hmm
which don't have the base of money. And I've been trying to put that into my life as much as possible. And I know the voices will go away when I'm like 100% on board doing it. I know I'm not doing that completely at the moment because I live in such a world where it's difficult to do that sometimes.
yeah,
So yeah.
beautiful. I want to thank you for all that you've given, and I just want to ask you if you were to do exactly what I asked you to do for the message of the world,
Mhm.
if you were to do that right now for the people that are listening,
Mhm.
what's one thing that you would like to say to people if you had the opportunity to say one thing and though they were listening? What would you like to say to them?
I would like to say that there is light at the end of the tunnel. We don't see it. And sometimes the light doesn't even look like the light. And I know that. But there is the other side. And I think as long as you keep working on yourself, the world will become better because you are like the mini world in this large world. So focus on the world, the internal world that you have, and you will see the changes that you truly want. You will have the happiness that you truly want. Just be grateful for what you have right now and what you're going to have and what you had, because everything, every little bit of it makes you, and it gives in turn to the world.
Beautiful. I want to thank you for being here. If people have fallen in love with you in this hour as I have, how would they get in touch with you? And I know you're going to send me all your social media links and your websites, but what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
First of all, thank you. I have fallen in love with you just as much. I am so, so glad that Aseem got us together. I
Thank you so much.
mean, that this has been absolutely amazing. And second, the easiest way to find me is either on LinkedIn or Instagram. For Instagram, it's Sway Sings, and for LinkedIn, it's Sway Dean GT.
Fabulous. So I just want to um, take a moment again in gratitude and appreciation. Thank you for being here. For those people who are listening, I want to thank you for being here with us. Um, if you like this show, there's only one way things spread. For as far as I know, I'm an old man. Maybe there's a lot of new ways now. But over time, what I've seen is that the way things grow is when people who see something that they like and they share it with people they like. So if you liked what you're seeing here in this show or any of the shows that we're doing, I would really invite you to share it with friends of yours and allow them to have the opportunity to experience what you've experienced. And if they like it, to share it with their friends as well. And that's the way a revolution or a movement really gets built from the inside, where people just like something and share it with people they like. If you don't, no worries. There's no obligation to do any of it, but that would be one ask that I would have of you. The other ask that I would have of you is, look what happens in a room where two strangers come together. And look at how beautiful a conversation it is. We walked in as strangers. Sway was somebody that I had no idea who she was. But we walk out of this room as friends. And it's the person that I love and adore, and I know so much about her and feel so much, and there's so much more to know about her. And so I would like to invite all of you to take the opportunity, whether it's virtually or in person, to walk up to somebody you don't know and just invite them to have a conversation. Just start by asking them, how are you? With no need to change them, fix them, help them, correct them, teach them, govern them, lead them, do anything. Just invite them to tell you how they are. And just listen to them. And if you don't understand them, you can ask them questions, but just hold the space for people to be heard. We live in a world where there's a lot going on right now. And if we're strangers, we'll relate to the world differently than we will than if we're friends. And what's it take? 30 minutes to become a friend? It doesn't take very long. Mm-hmm. And if we start to build worlds of boxes, as Faye said in the way she was talking, in the big box, if we create little boxes of friendships wherever we are, that you create your boxes of friendships and I create my boxes of friendships, and then we connect those boxes of friendships, it sort of looks like a mosaic, doesn't it? Where
it does.
All those boxes become pieces that we put together, and the world suddenly starts to feel connected again. Mm-hmm. So I invite you to do that. Faye, is there one thing more that you want to say before we go?
No, I think I said everything, at least that this version of me was meant to say. And I think everything you've said has just tied all of it perfectly together. So thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's my absolute honor. Okay, so thank you again for coming. People, thank you for coming. Do my sponsor a favor, take a look at the Mosaic, do the show a favor, share it with your friends, and do yourself a favor. Get to know a stranger. Until the next stranger appears in the room, be friends, be loving, be kind, be good, and don't be strangers. Ciao.